you escape from a cult that has you trapped? I want to tell you my story because it might help someone. And I've come to realise that there's a principle, when I look back, of the mechanism behind how I escaped. And it's incredible. And it applies to anyone who's in any abusive situation, any controlling situation that you'd like to get out of, but you can't because you're trapped. And for myself, it started when I was born. I was born into a religious cult. And at the age of 18, I wanted to get out, but I couldn't. I was trapped. And it took me 4 years to work through and come to the place whereby I could escape. And I'm going to very briefly tell you that story. I wrote the whole story in a book called Cult Escape, which is free on Amazon Unlimited. And in this book, as I was writing it, I thought, how can you call the book Cult Escape and not tell people how to escape from a cult themselves? So I wrote the heading on my computer, How to Escape the Cult You Are In, chapter 23. And as I'd finished writing it, I realised I've no clue what to write next. It's a very sensitive subject, talking about leaving cults. People can lose their families. I did. I lost my parents and brothers when I left at the age of 22. And so it's a very, very sensitive, potentially life-changing situation to leave a religious cult, and I'm aware of that. And so so as I finished writing the heading, I had a blank, and then a few seconds later, a realization of a principle, a powerful principle, which is what helps people escape any abusive religious controlling situation. And I've written it down, and I'm just going to quote a little bit from this chapter just to put this in context. I know what it is like to go through the great struggle and pain that leaving a cult can cause. There was a time when I felt like I was a rope in a tug of war. My heart was being wrenched from 2 different directions, and the best word that I use to describe what it was like is dread. I felt I was totally trapped in my situation with no way out, a place of fear and indecision. That's how I felt in those last 4 years before I managed to escape. And so every person will leave or escape their abusive situation differently. But there's one principle which applies to every single person, which is this: a person will leave a cult when their value to escape is stronger than their value to stay. That principle applies to everything and everyone. We live our lives according to our values. And our values, just 3 short definitions. A value is simply something that is important to you. Values make you the person you are. Actions reveal your values because you always act with what is most important and valuable to you at the time. And conflicting values hold you back and cause stress. And so generally speaking, we only ever do what our values motivate us to do. And here are some examples of how values can direct a person's life. Many people go to work and they hate their job. And yet they set their alarm clock to go off 6 o'clock every morning, Monday to Friday. Why? Why are they doing something they hate? It's because they value the rewards and the lifestyle that they get from doing the thing they hate. So the rewards are more important than what they do. Some people value the feeling food gives them more than being slim, like I do at the moment. I'm a bit of a chubster at this moment during this pandemic season. That's my excuse. I'll lose it before Christmas. Anyway, some people value their marriage enough to refuse to have an affair when temptation appears. Some people value spending more time with their children than working all hours and paying for a larger house, for example. Our values determine what we do and where we are. And if we're in a religious cult, I've come to realise it's because our values, our highest values, lie in there. And this was my case. So when I wanted to leave at 18 and I couldn't, it was because I couldn't face leaving my parents. they meant more to me. They were more important to me than anything else. Also, there was the familiarity of my, since I was born. We had 10 or 11 meetings every week. And so I had this strong sense of belonging, which you get in groups. And that was important to me. It was of value to me. And so for 4 years, I struggled with conflict of values, because on one side, I wanted to leave. I wanted the bright lights of the city, to explore and to find out who I was. And on the other side, I was emotionally held by the love of my parents. And that's why it was extremely difficult 4 years. But on my 22nd birthday, I had a shift in values. My values changed, and this is what happened. I looked out the window, my bedroom window, and I saw 2 drunkards below having a good time, and I thought, they're happy and I'm not. And in 10 years' time, I'm going to be 32. I've got another 10 more years of misery ahead of me, 10 more years of unhappiness. That's what I've got, if I'm still alive. And that realization made my values shift in that moment, and I committed myself immediately to leaving. The value for freedom, the value for not being unhappy for another 10 years shifted to my highest value. And when it became my highest value, I escaped. And in my mind, I was completely free immediately. Then it just took practical steps to make the arrangements to leave. And so what I'd like to suggest to you is, if you're in a religious cult now and feel trapped, or maybe in an abusive situation and feel trapped, it's only because at the moment your values are where you are. Some people in an abusive situation, they get their friends say to them, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just walk out and go? Walk out the door. And they say they can't, because they fear what can happen if they do. They value their bad situation and the security of it and the knowing what's going to happen to them more than the unknown and the potential consequences. The values dictate where they are, and they dictate, if you're in a religious cult, they dictate where you are going to stay unless your values shift, unless they change. And so how can you change your values if you want to, if you'd like to? That is a massive question, and to keep these videos short, I'm going to answer that, attempt to answer that in the next video. And it's about eliciting values. It's about discovering actually what your values actually are. You may not really realize until you do an exercise to find out. And this is what I did, and I was surprised at what my values were. And when you see what your values are, then you can make a decision, if you want, to choose to change them to values that would enable you to leave the abusive, the controlling, or the cultic situation that you're in. So thank you for listening. I hope this helps somebody. I can only see part of the jigsaw. You've got other pieces. Please share them in the comments below about how to escape the cult you're in. And please subscribe, like and comment if you will, which would help the video get seen by more people. It might help with more people. Thank you for watching. See you soon.